On Saturday, March 1st, I'll be hosting an online event titled Dancing with Darkness, a virtual descent into the vital mystery of light and shadow. This gathering offers a rich opportunity to meaningfully explore the primordial dance of light and shadow, with visionary talks from Ganga Devi Braun and Daje Alo, past guests of the project, and a live conversation between myself and today's guest, Samuel Adams. Together we will journey through the life-giving interplay of these wild forces, offering reverent reflections, soulful stories, stirring insights, and interactive Q&A sessions where you can engage directly with the themes shared. A recording will be available with every ticket purchase, allowing you to revisit the content at any time. So follow the link in the show notes and join us for this virtual descent into the vital mystery of light and shadow. Welcome to Wild Heart Revival, a gathering place for heartfelt conversations and stories as pathways of renewal and revival. I'm your host, Tay Tayari, and today's guest is Samuel Adams. Sam and I explore the heart of masculine wildness, the wisdom of the feminine, and the balance between integrity and flow. Sam shares his journey of rewilding and embracing his femininity as a path to authentic masculinity. We dive into the challenges and opportunities men face today, touching on themes of freedom, permission, and responsibility. Sam's reflections offer insights on listening deeply, honoring Earth's rhythms, particularly the wisdom of winter, and the importance of letting go for rooted renewal. Samuel Adams is a men's coach who helps men reconnect with their wild and authentic selves. Drawing from his experiences across the globe and his own journey of personal and spiritual healing, he guides men through rewilding practices, addressing trauma, and fostering a deeper connection with nature and their inner selves. He empowers men to live more fulfilling lives by embracing their masculine and feminine energies and navigating the challenges of modern life with greater awareness and freedom. If you're new to the show, you might like to know that I'm a threshold counselor with an online practice dedicated to supporting wanderers, wanderers, and edgewalkers. I offer individual, couples, and group counsel, as well as support around death and dying. To learn more, visit my website through the link in the show notes. I also offer free insight calls, which provide a risk-free opportunity for us to connect, explore our alignment, and determine if we're a good fit to walk alongside each other during a pivotal time in your life. I'm generally open to connecting via email and video chat if you feel naturally drawn to do so, whether for guidance, curiosity, collaboration, or any other meaningful reason, so feel free to reach out at any time. If you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe to Wild Heart Revival on your preferred podcast platform, and know that your likes, comments, ratings, and shares are not only deeply appreciated, they are vital for supporting the organic growth of these heartfelt conversations and stories. Now, giving ourselves and each other permission to explore with heartfelt inquiry what it might mean to rewild masculinity, let's warmly welcome wild man Samuel Adams. I think a good place to start is to get as clear as we can at the beginning here of what it means to be a wild man. It's precarious and precious time in human and earth history. What does it really mean to you, to me, to us? And being humble enough to know that we don't have the answers, that it's an inquiry, but it's an important one. And I'm honored to inquire with you. So let's see what unfurls.
Thank you. Yes, permission. Permission is what comes up when I think of the wild man gives himself permission to feel things that in the past were restricted or denied, permission to express himself, connect himself, to move, to think outside the box. If the box is the city walls or the narrow-minded thinking of establishments and linear oppressive regimes, the empire, to be a wild man is to give yourself permission, freedom to play in that arena or not, to question that arena. Yeah, and to be like we really are as ecological beings, as animals, to dance with the seasons, to feel ourselves made of blood and bone, made of fire and earth and water and air. And how do we move in relationship to the planets, to the plants, to other beings? All of this, that's what it means to be a wild man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it seems that there's a necessary depth of listening, a deepening of awareness, attention,
Right?
paying attention to what's really going on,
Yeah.
and cultivating presence and consciousness amidst the throng of life and all the different ways in which civilization pulls at us,
Yeah.
tries to distract us, not even tries, does distract us. I love that image of going beyond the pale of civilization, and that it's not necessary to go beyond with your physical body, that you can go beyond the pale with your heart and your mind and still be within city limits, so to say. So there's like a wildness we can connect with, that we can craft even amidst the wholly domesticated, that there's an untamability available even amidst that which is very much tamed. How do you understand that at this time in your life? This this art, is it an art?
It's certainly a remembering. I think it's inviting us to remember. You talk about listening. I think it's listening to our stories beyond time, listening to our bodies, the DNA imprinted on our bones, and in the fabric of the old stories. I think it shows up in everyday moments. It's about how we listen, how we talk. One doesn't have to be tattooed and long-haired, wearing fur clothes to be a wild man. It's more in the energy of presence, sense of freedom to be himself, permission to be oneself, permission to think independent of what the schools have said, or to be sovereign in healthcare choices, economic choices, set ourselves free from the curses or spells put upon men, from outdated modalities. Boys don't cry, don't fight. You've got to just have a stiff upper lip and bite the bullet. And that's not liberty. That's not the wild. That's not freedom. There might be cases where that type of stoicism is required, but if that's the only way we know how to be, then that's not freedom.
So there's a freedom available in connecting with our wildness. What does that freedom really look like in the face of an economic, techno-industrial society machine that's consistently drawing us in and really forcing us in many ways to participate. Yeah, this word freedom, this sense of liberation and wildness. I think it's, of course, different for everyone in a way, but yeah, what does that really look like for you at this time?
I think that complex you described, the industrial capitalist system, is predicated on a linearity, and the male-dominated patriarchal society that has been around for many, many hundreds of years has excelled in linear thinking. So the linearity for a modern man is, this is the way I have to be, this is my path. There isn't permission, there isn't even the thought of questioning it or looking at it from a different angle. But one could reduce it to, I need to finish school and college, and there's a relationship, and there's children, and there's a mortgage, and there's a pension, and there's death. That is the capital system where we are just cogs in a machine. Some people might want that, but the freedom, the wild way, is to continue to see life as a journey, as a path, but understand it's not always linear. And we come upon a junction in our journey of life, be it a health issue, a relationship issue, often something to do with pain.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be the trend as a form of forced rite of passage. I've got cancer diagnosis, I'm having a divorce, someone's died close to me, I have an addiction. At this metaphorical junction on the journey of life, I need to then look around, slow down, listen, walk 360 degrees in my life in that moment, and think outside of the narrow linearity of the industrial complex. Perhaps mainstream chemotherapy isn't best for me. Perhaps there's a new thing that opens up as I take that moment to pause in my moment of grief, of heartache, of death, of despair, of redundancy, losing a job, bankruptcy. How can this challenge be a gift? How can it be an opportunity? How can I position myself to respond with a sense of imagination, creativity, responsiveness? Doesn't make it easier, but it makes it more abundance, more accessible.
Let's dive into that last question you posed. How can we position ourselves for to be able to access a greater depth of imagination, creativity, wild wisdom? Yeah.
I think of my times in the forest where I'll be walking along this path, seeing it as a mirror to my life journey, but a literal path in the forest, and the path suddenly ends, or I think it does. All I see around me, brambles, bushes, obstacles, a cliff. And part of me gets scared. What can I do? I was expecting to go that way. Now I am stuck. Do I turn around? All of these narratives come up for my psyche. Maybe it's common. I'm a failure. I'm alone. I'm vulnerable. There's a risk here. And it's in a split second we have a moment to respond. So as I've walked in forests, I've now seen that as an opportunity. Thank God there's a pause in this path, because I get to stop. And on multiple occasions, I have found a gift often right by my feet at that ending. I've looked around, I've found beautiful skulls of animals, and that's something really special, and maybe there's a symbolic resonance of what that animal represents. Or I found an old bee, not a beehive, where bees nest and honey. And then I've looked around and a new path has opened that I hadn't previously seen. And I read these ancient texts of ethnographers of talking to pre-industrial communities around the world about how they navigated the forest. The white man would come with his machete and smash down the path. It would be slow, tedious, violent work. Whereas the pre-industrial communities knew how to observe, to listen, to walk barefoot at speed. As if, in one book, it said the forest opened up and welcomed him through. And yeah, I think there's a dance here, and underneath everything I'm saying is something of remembering the ways of the feminine, the cyclical nature. I've said abundance already, things that I associate with feminine, with yin energy, abundance, mystery, slowing down, listening, observing, surrendering. That's, ironically, in my work with men, to be a wild man is to embrace his femininity, embrace his mystery, embrace that space of surrender and trust and faith.
Yeah, funny to say ironically, because in pre-industrial cultures, it's not ironic at all. I mean, the earth is our mother. To have the forest open up is to be in communion with the deep feminine, to be in communion with that which has given birth, given rise to our life, given us the gift of life, and continues to sustain us through abundance of gifts. So yeah, there's a necessity to deepen our connection to the current of the feminine, which is much more difficult to do when you are embedded in civilization. In my opinion, I think of the times when I've spent a lot of time, days or even weeks out in wild spaces, and I just feel myself so much more naturally coming to a balanced state of being. I can feel the masculine and feminine harmonize without even much effort. So natural and wild spaces, in my experience, they do that. The landscape does so much of the work for us. I mean, the work of balancing our internal landscape, But you made me think of this wonderful poem by Tagore when you were talking about coming to the end of the path. And I wanted to share it to see if something opens up for you or for me, for us. Rabindranath Tagore, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he says, "I thought that my voyage had come to its end, at the last limit of my power, that the path before me was closed, that provisions were exhausted, and the time had come to take shelter in silent obscurity. But I find that thy will knows no end in me, and when old words die out on the tongue, new melodies break forth from the heart. Where the old tracks are lost, new country is revealed with its wonders."
Yeah, I love that. When the tracks run out, the new country is revealed. Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah, and there's something about the heart, he says there near the end, when old words die out on the tongue, new melodies break forth from the heart. And that's what I was thinking too when you were sharing, that there's a a tenderness necessary, that we need to deepen our capacity to be touched by the living world, to really feel with ever deepening and sweetening sensitivity through our hearts, to be able to really, like, to have the forest open up for you, for example. Can you really do that without feeling deeply what's really present there? I don't think so. And so to me, it seems like the heart is a an essential ally, and that our relationship with our heart's intelligence needs to deepen if we're to really rewild or to access deeper layers of our wildness.
Mm.
What comes up for you in that?
Yeah, definitely. A wild man is connected to his heart. There's freedom to feel when we've had feelings shut down, shamed, told not to feel certain things, feel certain ways. The heart gets in the way of capital productions. So, yeah, back to the heart. And equally so, I think back to a sense of integrity. And I mentioned that as well, because I think a lot of modern men's work and men's identity has focused on the heart, which is essential, but forgotten something of the erect strength that the masculine is also part of. I think there's a two-way relationship in the forest. There's a dance that occurs between the feminine wild space, the forest, and the masculine embodied presence of that human. For her to open, she needs to trust him. Trust that he has strength and self-control, that he has integrity and respect and honor flowing through his bones, flowing through his blood. I think that when I described those white men coming through, they were coming to take, to colonize, to destroy, to damage. They were coming ignorant and wounded. So why would she open up and show a path? Why would she show her intimate beauty in the spaces? Whereas if when a man comes to that gateway, to that opportunity, to that moment of vulnerability, I do believe, and it's going to sound strange, that she can sense that. She can sense the presence of the hunter in the forest and offer her fruit to him.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit more about integrity. What does that really mean to you? And is it some kind of static ideal to strive toward, or is it more of a dynamic dance when you think about integrity?
Yeah, the way I'd answer that is integrity is a masculine characteristic, and masculinity represents consistency, boundary. There's a steadfastness to the masculine. Whereas our feminine, represents flow and movement, the dance, the chaos, the beauty, the mystery. As a man, I'm really connected to masculinity, and I'm really connected to integrity. I've needed to embrace my femininity to be able to find my masculinity. The two go hand in hand. What I offer the feminine to my partner, to my children, to creativity around me, sisters, mothers, is a sense of consistency, reliability, and that's where the integrity comes in. What I notice is her response to that she is able to relax. She is able to flourish. She is able to bring her authentic gifts, intuition, trust, so much more. And I describe that within my own inner feminine, bringing me those gifts of faith and creativity, as much as the feminine without.
Yeah, as you were describing that there, I had an image of a flower opening, and I thought, the flower can't ever bloom if it doesn't have some kind of integrity, some kind of strong stalk, stem that comes out, of the earth and penetrates up toward the sky, and can remain strong within the winds and the change of the season, and then that flower eventually opens. It's so important, because I personally, I wasn't given the kind of modeling. I wasn't shown the kind of pattern of integrity that was needed to witness a woman really open and feel safe and relaxed. I never saw that as a young one. And so I've had to learn that. I'm still very much learning that as an adult. And it's difficult to reconcile the history of having missed something like that. Like there's grief there, and sometimes it's not so easy to know. I guess I'm trying to say, and maybe I can turn this into a question of when someone like me or you is noticing that their woman, their lover, is not relaxed, is not feeling safe, is not feeling that integrity, that holding that they need to really unfurl their beauty. How to reorient in those moments. How best to reorient to come into greater integrity. Yeah. Was that question clear?
How does the man, come into an integrity when he notices his partner has withdrawn?
Yeah.
I think that the reason for her withdrawing could be a whole range of things.
Definitely.
That's part of the mystery of her path of the feminine way. I think part of the man's journey in that type of heterosexual relationship is to trust that she's okay and doesn't need to be rescued or fixed. And the integrity I can offer her is just my presence. If I'm the riverbank and she's in some sort of spiraling eddy, curling back on herself and crying or emotional, it's hard. But let me not rescue and make her into a victim there. It's part of her beauty, part of her being in her feminine. I notice the more I dance with a partner is the more I can just be that not fixing riverbank, the shorter the eddies are, because over time there's trust that builds, the flow can continue, the union is less frictious. And I'm not perfect. Sometimes as a riverbank, I crumble in sections and I make mistakes. So she will overflow the banks and feel unsafe because I haven't protected, I haven't thought of something, or I've said something hurtful. Humility. Integrity isn't perfection. Integrity is being consistent even in repentance and saying, how can we learn from this? I own this mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I see the impact on you. I am sorry. It was not my intention. Together, how can we find a way so that this is less likely in future? And trust can be rebuilt on the back of resolved conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be stronger. Trust will be stronger because there's a sense of, if there's a mistake, this man knows how to own his shit and take responsibility. A big part of integrity is taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's so important. You're making me think about how, like, what is it that really holds a riverbank together? You know, it's usually, well, it's a mix of things, but it's a community of beings and composition. There's roots from plants, from trees. There's boulders, rocks that have been there for a long time. And so I'm thinking about how necessary it is for relationships to be present, that it's not just about you and your lover, that your integrity isn't just in that container, that the riverbank of yourself needs a depth of relationship and community with others to be able to hold those waters of your love and your relationship. And I can see how the men in my family who didn't really model integrity in that way, how they were missing depth of relationship and community, you know. And I can see in my life how I've been affected by that as well. And that's certainly something that I learn from the wild whenever I'm blessed to spend time in wild spaces, is to witness the mosaic of community, the depth of relationship that's present, the diversity of relationship.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I know that there's an epidemic of loneliness. I know I've been very lonely in my life at different times. How do you see that in your life? How has loneliness and relationship, community, been present? How has it been amiss? And how is that affecting and or affected you? What feels important to speak to on that?
Yeah, thank you. So one of my biggest childhood experiences was fear. I didn't feel safe. So I didn't really learn how to trust anyone. In fact, I mistrusted people. And as a consequence of that, I became Mr. Independent. And that showed up with an introvert nature, isolating myself, moving country multiple times, loving moving house. Did I ever really put down roots for my first 3 decades? I question that. Of course, I didn't know how to because I was wounded. But I made a conscious choice about 10 years ago to put down roots here in the UK. It served me well. But I'm still learning. I'm still learning to trust more and more, to allow love in, to feel good enough in community, and to hold the part of me, the young inner child, that deep down just fears rejection, fears being hurt. So it's easier to choose isolation than risk rejection. On my map of yin and yang and these poles, the masculine pole is isolated. It is the tip of the iceberg. It is the tip of the erect penis. It is the island. Some philosophers said no man's an island, but I'd like to suggest that yang energy in its purest form is the island or the lighthouse. And the feminine, by contrast, is all one isness, life itself, the ecosystem of everything. And we've got to hold these things in tension because we are made of both yin and yang. Knowing that there's a spectrum there, that if we are the tip, we are one. And if we are everything, we're also one. So there's a mystery. But there's a tendency, particularly for men, to isolate themselves. Loneliness is rampant. Mental loneliness, suicide are linked. And it's knowing when to walk alone, to take respite, retreat, and to choose that, to give permission to be alone. But know that that really should be the exception. That's to find my edge, to find my sharpest point in that intimate, vulnerable space, whether it's lovemaking, prayer, communing with the gods. But really what I need is to lean into my feminine, lean into the web of life, to the circle. And that's home. That's the home base. That is the mycelium web of the tribe. And yeah, send me out to go hunting and let me come back. Let me come back every time. The problem is, I think men have been sent out and then just stay. Their bodies are back at home after work. Their heads are still in the pub, in the factory, at the soccer match. And that's not freedom. That's not the wild. That is a form of captivity because of wounding, because I'm scared of being loved, to be intimate, to be present, to be seen, to be great. It's easier to play small and to be vacus in oneself than to really show up.
Yeah. And two, I think that there's a fear of that responsibility that you spoke to earlier. That there's so much demand on our energy these days, given the complexity of civilization, that our different responsibilities are very novel at this time, the diversity of responsibilities we have. And I think that plays a significant role in feeling taxed, feeling overtaxed, feeling like feeling challenged in directing energy, focus. And in the past, in prehistory, and in more simple communities, pre-industrial communities, the focus was on your loved ones. The focus was on maintaining health of your people. And that's definitely a part of our focus now. But there is this, it's like we're forced into maintaining the health of the overall system in a way. And so I'm just trying to gather my thoughts around like how I think there's a challenge in focusing our energy around our responsibilities because they're diverse and because they take us away from our immediate environment in many ways, our immediate communities. And yeah, I'm just wondering about that.
Mm.
What does responsibility really mean? And how to really orient toward our responsibilities in a way that's regenerative, that's honest, authentic. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It has got diverse. I might suggest scale is the cause and complexity, because I celebrate diversity.
Yeah.
It's the scale,
Yeah.
and it's the disconnect from the immediate. It's about disconnection to go and produce in a macro system that is not connected, doesn't have any bearing to my tangible, visible home space.
Hmm.
How can I really have dominion, be responsible for my dominion, for my home, for my domestic, if it's in all of these metaphorical energy flows of money and capital and workflows that are unrelated and intangible?
Hmm.
For me, responsibility means the ability to respond.
Hmm.
And by that, I mean to take care of. How do I take care of what's in front of me? As a masculine trait, responsibility is taking care of what I love and what I value. That might show up as protecting my child. It might show up as building a fence so I've got boundaries around my property, fixing my home. These are examples of tangible ways. And I think deep in a human's psyche, men and women, but we're mainly speaking about men, is the need to see the fruit of his labor. To see that when I did this, it stopped the leak in that pipe. When I did this, it grew a tree, and now I've got apples for my family. That disconnect, I think, wears down a man's soul because his responsibility is invisible. His caretaking is unrelated to what he loves, what he values, what he can hold on to in real terms. Maybe he likes his job, he's good at marketing or his business, but it's different to the home space, the dominion. We've got to take care of what we love. That's what responsibility means.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Hmm. So let's talk about, because when I think about taking care of what I love, there's the immediate, dominion, family, home, community. But also, for me at least, the ecology, the landscape, the more than human, the kin that extends into the valleys, the forests, the waters. Um, I think to be a wild man, to kind of bring that back in, is to have a deep love and reverence for nature, for the wild. So at this time, we were talking before we got on this recording about the fires in LA. And I was just expressing my grief around that. Of course, for that particular event that's still ongoing right now as we speak, but just also what that represents. The grief I feel for how landscapes are being neglected, to say it mildly, and actually in many ways purposely destroyed. And so it's really difficult for me to have conversations about rewilding, wildness, without somehow exploring the responsibility piece around caring for the more than human, extending our care for kin out into the greater web of life. And what does that really mean for us as individuals, as communities? It feels like such a complex topic. It's so big, it's so vast. So how can we like ground it, root it in some way? I'll just say, like, I've responded in different ways and at different times. I think that it's dynamic, our response. I actually went to prison for some days in Canada for trying to protect one of the last remaining watersheds of an ancient rainforest, temperate rainforest on Vancouver Island in Canada. So that was a call to action that led to real consequence, that was really difficult to metabolize, you know? So sometimes we're called to big acts like that, but then other times called to simply just go steep by a river and slow down in presence with the more than human in a real way. So it's this, I think I'm trying to say that it's this big kind of spectrum, you know, of our responsiveness that's necessary. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, the topic.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the importance of remembering our oneness, that to take care of the more than human is to take care of myself. And that's part of the rewilding narratives that are unfolding at the moment, or the self-rewilding, is to remember more than ever that we are nature. So to take care of the apple tree on my road is to take care of myself. To remember that when I die, my DNA is entering the ground, and then other trees will eat off my body and I will become those trees. My ancestors and the roots of spirituality is really quite scientific, that the dead are the food we eat, the dead are the water we drink, because the rain has percolated through their remains in cemeteries and tombs and become part of the water ecosystem. The dead are the air we breathe. We are our ancestors. The landscape is us. There is no separation. I can't understand anyone disagreeing with the science of that, let alone the poetry of that.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we need to take care. And what you've described is just the flip side of what I was saying about we're away working on things unrelated to the local in these mythical systems of stocks and shares. Yeah. The other thought that came up was that the wild always wins. These fires you describe are the wild coming back, calling for our attention, reminding us that the system is out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
We know from important research that fires are essential small scale regular fires in the undergrowth through wild forests keep the ecosystem rich and has evolved that way.
Mm-hmm.
The wild always wins. The jungle, the forest, the desert will grow over our civilizations long after we're gone. I'm not worried about the wild. I just want to love her, take care of her, honor her, and listen to her, because I think rather than seeing her as another responsibility, which is often something we hear in modern relationships, oh, my wife's become a drain, a nag, a drag. No, she's got so much richness if we're open to listening.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's inconvenient to take care of my yard, to mow my lawn. No, listen. We've got it the wrong way around. See her as a burden, see her as something to be dominated and exploited, and responsibility in a heavy, burdensome way.
Yeah.
It's not right. It's to take care of what we value, knowing that she and I are one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alan Watts, I just listened to a talk by him, and he was saying how he was kind of in his offhandedly, jokingly way talking about how modern man is obsessed with trying to contain the squiggly, that nature, the wild, is squiggly, that it's inherently uncontainable, and so we'll always fail if we're approaching her in that way, if we're trying to control any kind of outcome that is based in linearity, as you were mentioning earlier, straight lines, right angles, these kinds of things, that it's impossible. Maybe we can do it for a moment, like a city culture rises up for some moments, but it can't stay like that. The earth is too squiggly. And I love that, because the word squiggly is playful, and that's what I'm hearing in what you're saying, is that it's not this burdensome responsibility to continue to try to contain, but that the invitation is to learn how to play and dance. And Robert Bly, when he talks about what it means to be wild, he talks about the exuberant curiosity in the face of the mystery. In other words, being playfully receptive and responsive to the squiggliness of nature.
Yeah.
That's always the path forward toward harmony. And I can think about my life, to bring it into the more immediate and personal, that the more I'm able to be kind of light-footed with things, to bring like a lightness and a playfulness, the more things actually seem to go well. And the more containment and control, maybe containment isn't the right word, but the more control and forcing that I bring to my days and my moments, the less things seem to go well. How have you seen that show up in your life?
Oh, the key word shouting out as you speak is consent. There's nothing wrong with control. If we don't have control, then there tends to be danger. It can be dangerous without control. But in each moment where control might be necessary, it's asking for permission.
I love that distinction. Yeah.
Do I
Thank you.
have consent to bring some boundaries here?
Yeah.
And really be open to hearing any answer. No. The land says, I want my river to be squiggly. No, I don't want a dam. No, I don't want a fence. Okay. Yeah. And listening for the yes. They're beautiful yeses. May I move this tree? May I plant an orchard here? Often there's a huge resounding yes. Yes, yes, yes. Come. I've been waiting for you, my lover. It's like the landscape whispers that to my ears. I've been waiting for you to plow my field. I've been waiting for you to plant your seeds so that I may bear a crop to give you life, because it is my joy, she says, to give you life. But listen to the no, because if we don't respect the no, she's going to stop saying yes. That's where I think we find ourselves in modern society. We have overridden her no countless times, innumerable times, and forgotten all of these things, how to ask, how to listen.
Yeah.
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 We are recording this in winter, and this is really the time in the annual cycle to listen above all others, although should be a daily practice, to listen for epiphany, to listen for wisdom, to listen in the darkness of winter. Because I can't see, the sun isn't here in the northern hemisphere right now. But I can listen. I've got many hours in darkness to use my other senses. To ask questions, to inquire, to listen, to imagine what would metaphorical ploughing look like in the spring. What ideas of expansion, of growth, of seed planting are coming this year for my family, for my business, for my dreams, for my wishes. So for any listeners, the invitation I just feel prompted to ask is, what seeds do you carry, and are you asking permission before planting them in 2025?
Yeah. Yeah. And really taking the time to sink into the quietude of darkness and winter, to really honor the season in a deep way. I was just reading the other day how it was very common in many Northern European communities for like real hibernation practices to be a part of the cultural tapestry during winter. Deep rest, sleeping for so many hours out of the winter months. And I read that and I could feel my own system settle, like, that's what I've been missing, because I was raised in the north too. Now I'm closer to the equator, so it's a bit different, but I that's what's been missing. I think about the winters of my life and how things just kind of go on as if it's summer. You're expected to show up and perform, and shovel the driveway, get the snow out of the way so that you can continue on your way, and do it quickly. You got to make the time stamp. So there's something about reclaiming our wildness where honoring the seasons is necessary, and that sometimes it's going to call us, like in the winter months, it's going to call us to really actually resist the intense forward motion of the economy, of society.
Yeah, and this flies in the face of business training about constant growth.
Yeah,
That's the unbalanced masculine way, that linear graph going up and up and up and up.
yeah,
Cyclical way that brings in feminine wisdom, understands the need for winter. And to answer your very first question, what does it mean to be wild? I said permission. And in this season, it's permission to be unproductive.
yeah,
Wow, imagine that. I find it hard. Permission to hibernate, permission to rest. And unproductive is not quite the right word because it's productive still, but it's a different form.
yeah,
It's in the realm of the invisible.
yeah,
So I'm still abundant, creating, producing, but maybe it's in the dream space because I've given myself permission to sleep more, to eat more, to put on weight. Those are important winter practices. I've given myself permission to dream more, to journal more, to have longer phone calls, to play more games, to be more silly, to have more fun, be less distracted with work or focus there, to pray more, to listen to the spirits more.
Yeah. As far as I understand, the roots of plants deepen and expand in the night. There's something about the darkness that allows us to root into the invisible, like you're saying, in a really important way that allows us to craft our vision. I'm thinking about how St. John of the Cross, he says, if you want to know what path you're walking, you have to close your eyes and go in the dark. So there's something about vision and seeing clearly that necessitates the honoring of winter, darkness, slowing down, resting. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Loving these quotes that you're bringing. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're coming to the end of this conversation, and I'm wondering on the topic of winter still, which is this season of dying in many ways. Maybe you'd like to share with us something that something that's dying for you, something that's coming apart in order to be renewed or to be let go of, to be pruned. If there's anything that feels important to share in that way.
Thank you. At the winter solstice, I took a group of 12 men underground. We went down some ancient tunnels quarried by our local ancestors. We walked in the darkness and began a ritual to answer this question. It was profound and symbolic, and as each man mentioned his death, his release, he blew out his candle until we were in utter darkness. And there, in the mystery, in the tomb, in the belly of the earth, profound, visceral experience. Mine was the last candle to go out, so to answer your question directly, my death is another layer of letting go of the need to be in control, to surrender more, to know that I can access both, that I don't have to always be in control, to trust more. So in that darkness of the cave, we prayed, we sang, and we found that connection using our way in the darkness without any lights on, and imagined a future where we were free, where we'd given ourselves permission to let these parts die, shed these skins, and to come back to the light transformed. That's the way of spring. That's the coming sun, the east. The sunrise, the new day begins, and there's good things. But death is so important to embrace spring fully and to really be wild in all senses of the word.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I'm so happy you got to do that with those men.
Yeah.
One's very meaningful, rich, real. Yeah. Yeah. And the word trust, you mentioned trust. I'll say I'm taking that on. I'm taking that on in a new way this year. Yeah. And there's a death in that because the parts of me which I see very connected to younger parts of me that mistrust actually come from being hurt, and that there's been a holding on to that pain and that hurtness for different reasons. And I think as I approach my 30th year in a couple weeks, and I move through another winter of my life, and I'm having the inquiry of what needs to die, what needs to change, is I need that holding to die for whatever reason, whatever kind of protective measures have been taken in my deep psyche to hold on to that pain and that mistrust to protect myself, that I really need to let that die for real, to access deeper levels of trust, because I can see how it's really continued to hurt me, not trusting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'd like for you to have the last word today. Is there any particular message you want to share, or a prayer, or anything you want to offer to this space, this moment, and all those who have chosen to tune into this whole conversation of ours?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you for those who've listened through to this point. My wish for all of us is greater freedom, liberty, and permission. I wonder where you might be getting stuck and where you might be helped by a simple prayer of your own to give yourself permission to try something a little bit scary, outside your comfort zone, but deep down you know it's right. Take that risk. So I wish greater freedom to think outside the linear, outside the box, and I bless all who take that risk. And here's to a more free world. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. It's been a real honor to be with you today in this way.
Likewise. Thank you. Thank you.